I received 23 sunset photos of my husband kissing my best friend, while the wedding planner had emailed me by mistake. I only discovered the truth when the wedding planner sent me their secret couple photos by mistake. The message read, "Here are the intimate pre-wedding shots you requested. The sunset lighting captured your chemistry beautifully." Attached were 23 pictures of my husband James and my best friend Olivia wrapped in each other's arms, looking at each other the way James hadn't looked at me in months. I stared at my phone, unable to breathe. The wedding planner had clearly mixed up the email addresses, thinking she was sending these to Olivia. My stomach lurched as I swiped through more photos. James kissing Olivia's neck by a lighthouse, their fingers intertwined on a beach, his hand resting possessively on her hip. The diamond engagement ring he'd bought her catching the golden hour light. "Emma, you okay?" My assistant Zoe stood in my office doorway, concern etching her features. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I couldn't form words. My best friend since college was marrying her fiancé Derek in 4 days. I was supposed to zip up her wedding dress, give a heartfelt speech, and toast to their happiness, all while she had been sleeping with my husband. "I need to go," I managed, grabbing my purse with shaking hands. That lied, the June heat hit me like a wall as I stumbled to my car. My phone buzzed with a panicked text from the wedding planner. "WRing Amel, please delete previous message immediately, not intended for you." Too late, the images were burned into my retinas, a slideshow of betrayal featuring the two people I trusted most. I drove aimlessly, eventually parking near the harbor where James had proposed to me 6 years ago. Our marriage had grown strained lately, him working late, me focused on expanding my family's real estate business, but infidelity with Olivia. The thought had never crossed my mind. My phone lit up with Olivia's name. She'd been calling every hour to discuss last-minute wedding details. This time I answered. Finally, I was thinking for the rehearsal dinner I got the photos," I said, my voice eerily calm. Silence stretched between us. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. "What photos? Don't. Omplate sent them to me by accident to you and James. How long?" Another pause. "Emma, I can explain. 4 days before your wedding lived to another man while sleeping with my husband." My composure was cracking. "Were you going to stand there and let me give a speech about loyalty and friendship while knowing what you've done?" "It just happened," she whispered. "We never meant to. Save it." I ended the call as tears finally broke free. My phone immediately lit up with James calling. Of course she'd called him first. I declined the call, watching notifications stack up, text messages, voicemails, Olivia calling again. A strange calm settled over me as I wiped away tears. They wanted to destroy me with their betrayal, fine. But I had 4 days until this wedding and I wasn't about to let them write the ending to our story. I started the car and headed toward my parents' lake house. I needed space to think, to plan, because one thing was certain. If Olivia still wanted her perfect white wedding, she was going to have to face me first. The lake house hadn't changed since my childhood, same faded blue shutters, same creaking screen door. Mom and Dad only used it during summers now, so I had the place to myself. I curled up on the porch swing, scrolling through photos of Olivia and me through the years. Freshman orientation. 2 nervous 18-year-olds who bonded over being the only sober girls at the dorm mixer. Spring break in Miami our junior year, where Olivia held my hair back when I got food poisoning, canceling her own plans to look after me. My wedding 5 years ago. Olivia standing beside me, squeezing my hand when I got nervous during vows. The camping trip 3 summers back. Olivia, James, Derek, and me around a bonfire, all coupled up and happy. Or so I thought. It seemed impossible that the Olivia I knew, who cried during pet adoption commercials and volunteered teaching literacy to immigrant women, could betray me so thoroughly. We'd been in every important moment of each other's adult lives. She was the sister I never had. I remembered exactly when she met James. It was at our housewarming party 2 years after our wedding. James and I had just bought our dream Victorian in Boston South End. Olivia arrived early to help set up arranging charcuterie boards and hanging fairy lights in the garden. "Your husband's surprisingly good at folding napkins," she teased, bumping my hip as we watched James meticulously creating perfect triangles. "He's surprisingly good at a lot of things," I'd replied with a wink, making her laugh. Had it started then or later when James began his consulting job that required constant travel? When had friendly text messages turned into something more? When had Olivia started looking at my husband and thinking she deserved him instead of me? My phone had been buzzing nonstop. 28 missed calls from James, 15 from Olivia, countless text messages I couldn't bear to read. I finally turned it off completely. As darkness fell over the lake, I wandered inside and found the bottle of whiskey Dad kept in the kitchen cabinet. The burn felt appropriate as I poured through more memories. Last Thanksgiving, James had begged off joining my family, claiming a work emergency. Olivia had also canceled her plans with Derek, saying she had food poisoning had they been together, while I sat at my parents' table, defending James's absence to my skeptical father. Then there was the business conference in Chicago 3 months ago. James went for networking opportunities. Olivia happened to have a wedding vendor meeting in the same city that weekend. I'd even helped her book her flight, finding one that arrived just an hour after James's. God, I'd been so blind. The whiskey bottle was half empty when I heard tires on the gravel driveway. My stomach clenched. Only a handful of people knew about this place. The car door slammed, heavy footsteps on the porch stairs, then a knock. "Emma, I know you are in there. Your location is still shared with my phone." "James, I'd forgotten about our phone tracking, something we'd set up years ago for safety when traveling. We need to talk about this." I stood, whiskey making the room tilt slightly, and moved to the door, but instead of opening it, I leaned my forehead against the cool wood. "Go away, James. Not until we talk. I am not leaving. Then enjoy sleeping in your car." "Damn it, Emma." His fist hit the door, making me jump back. "This isn't all my fault. If I just what?" I shouted through the door. "Not trusted my husband and best friend. Faye more suspicious. Checked your phone. Tell me what I did to deserve this." Silence fell, then softer. "You didn't deserve it. Please open the door." Something in his tone, perhaps actual remorse, made me reach for the knob. Or maybe it was the whiskey, or simply the need to see his face when he tried to explain the unexplainable. I opened the door and saw my husband of 6 years, the man I'd built my life around, standing on my parents' porch, looking both guilty and somehow indignant, like he had any right to be angry with me. "You have 5 minutes," I said. "Make them count." "You look terrible," James said, stepping into the lake house. "Funny how betrayal does that to a person." He winced, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit I once found endearing. "Why did you come?" "To explain how sleeping with my best friend just happened, how special your connection is. Save it for your vows." I crossed my arms. "Does Derek know?" James looked away. "Number, so I am the only one being humiliated here? Great, it's not like that." James paced the living room, keeping his distance from me. "Things between you and me haven't been right for a long time, Emma. You know that. So naturally the solution was to sleep with my best friend instead of, I don't know, talking to your wife. I tried talking. You were always working, always distracted with your family's company. I needed needed someone who actually had time for me. I laughed bitterly. Wow, you are really going with "you made me cheat" as your defense bold strategy. I am trying to explain how it happened. Olivia and I started talking more when you were busy with that big development project last year. She was having problems with Derek. I was feeling neglected. The word flies through my numbness. I was working 60-hour weeks to build something for our future. For the family we talked about starting. James had the decency to look ashamed, but pushed on. It just evolved. We never meant to hurt you. How considerate. And her engagement to Derek just a cover while you two figured out your exit strategy. His hesitation told me everything. Oh my god. The realization hit me like a physical blow. You two are actually planning a future together while she's days away from marrying someone else. James sat heavily on the sofa. She's going to call it off. We were going to tell you both after she canceled the wedding. We thought it would be easier that way. Easier? For whom exactly? My voice rose. You were going to let her leave Derek at the altar and then what, announce you are together? How long before the "we just realized our feelings" Instagram post? You are twisting everything. This isn't some calculated betrayal, Emma. We fell in love. It happens. The casual way he said it, like falling in love with your wife's best friend was some natural phenomenon, like rain or sunrise, broke something in me. Get out, Emma. I grabbed the closest object, a decorative bowl, and hurled it at the wall near his head. It shattered, ceramic shards scattering across the hardwood. You don't get to stand in my parents' house and tell me how you fell in love with my best friend like it's a Nicholas Sparks novel. You are drunk. We should talk when you are calmer. I am perfectly calm, I said, reaching for another throwable object. And if you don't leave in the next 10 seconds, I'll show you exactly how I feel about your grand love story. He backed toward the door. Olivia's worried sick about you. She just wants to explain. Tell Olivia the next time I see her will be at her wedding. I wouldn't miss it for the world. Something in my tone made him pause, hand on the doorknob. What does that mean? I smiled, a cold expression that felt foreign on my face. It means she wanted me as her maid of honor, and I take my duties very seriously. Emma, don't do anything stupid, like sleeping with my best friend's husband. Don't worry, I'd never stoop so low. After he left, I sat in the darkness, my mind racing. The initial shock had burned away, leaving a clarity I hadn't expected. I picked up my phone and turned it back on, ignoring the barrage of notifications from James and Olivia. Instead, I opened my text thread with Derek's sweet, unsuspecting Derek, who thought he was marrying the love of his life on Saturday. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Did he deserve to know, Rapa? Did he deserve to have his heart broken via text message? Privately not. I set my phone down. There were other ways to handle this, ways that would ensure James and Olivia couldn't control the narrative, ways that would make them face the consequences of their choices. The wedding was in 3 days. I had preparations to make. The morning of Olivia's wedding dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for the garden ceremony at the Edgewater Retreat. I checked my appearance one last time. Emerald green bridesmaid dress, Olivia's chosen color. Hair swept into an elegant updo. Makeup flawless. The picture of the supportive best friend. 48 hours of ignored calls and messages had done their work. Olivia was frantic. James was angry, and neither knew what I planned to do. I'd returned to Boston yesterday, rented a hotel room, and blocked their numbers. Let them sweat. The hotel room phone rang. The front desk. Miss Reynolds, your car has arrived. I'll be right down. In the elevator, I touched the small USB drive in my clutch. Insurance, just in case my resolve wavered. It contained burns of the wedding photographer's email, text exchanges I'd found between James and Olivia when I checked his iPad, left inconveniently logged into his accounts, and bank statement showing James had been moving our money into a separate account. The bridal party was getting ready in the estate's east wing. I took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Olivia's sister Melissa answered, her expression immediately hardening. You actually showed up. I'm the maid of honor, I said coolly. Where else would I be? The room fell silent as I entered. 3 bridesmaids froze mid-preparation, watching me like I might detonate. In the center sat Olivia in a silk robe, her wedding dress hanging nearby. Her face was pale despite her makeup, eyes red-rimmed. Emma, she whispered, standing shakily. You came. I promised I would. I set my bag down. W, here is your mother. I need to check on the flower arrangements. She's overseeing the caterers, Melissa said, still watching me suspiciously. You've been ignoring everyone's calls for 2 days, and now you are worried about flowers. I needed time to process, I said, meeting Olivia's gaze directly. But today isn't about me. Relief flooded Olivia's face. She thought I was going to keep her secret. Girls, can you give us a minute? The bridesmaids filed out, Melissa lingering until Olivia nodded reassuringly. When the door closed, Olivia rushed toward me. Emma, I've been losing my mind. I am so sorry. I stepped back. I am not here for your apology, but you are here. Does that mean? It means I've made a decision, but first I need to know, are you still marrying Derek today? She twisted her engagement ring, tears threatening to ruin her makeup. I don't know. James thinks I should go through with it, that we should wait to tell everyone, but I can't. I can't stand at that altar and lie. How considerate of you. Emma, please. I know you hate me. I don't hate you, I interrupted. That's the worst part. 15 years of friendship doesn't disappear overnight, but I don't recognize the person you've become. A knock at the door saved her from responding. It was her mother, Patricia, elegant in lavender and looking surprised to see me. Emma, you are here. She embraced me stiffly. Olivia, the florist, needs your final approval on the altar arrangements. Can you come? Now Olivia glanced between us. It'll just take a minute, dear. Emma can help you into your dress when you get back. When Olivia left, Patricia's warm facade dropped. I wasn't sure you'd show up. Did you know? I asked bluntly. She sighed, sitting on the tufted ottoman. About James. Not until Olivia called me hysterical 2 days ago. And you still want her to get married today. What I want is irrelevant. Olivia makes her own choices, always has. She studied me with surprising compassion. This isn't the first time, you know. What do you mean? In high school, Olivia dated her best friend's boyfriend behind her back. In college, she borrowed her roommate's thesis research for her own paper. Here is a pattern. I stared at her, processing this new information. Why are you telling me this? Because despite everything, I believe you care about my daughter, and because I think you deserve to know who you are dealing with. She stood, smoothing her dress. Olivia has always wanted what other people have. The question is, what are you going to do about it? After she left, I wandered to the window overlooking the garden. Guests were beginning to arrive, white chairs in neat rows, flowers everywhere. The perfect setting for a beautiful lie. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. talk before the ceremony, mind me in the library, now. My stomach dropped. Did he know? Had someone told him? The library was in the west wing. As I hurried through the estate's elegant hallways, my mind raced with possibilities. What would I say to him? Would I finally tell the truth? I pushed open the heavy wooden door to find not Derek but James standing by the fireplace. You tricked me, I said, turning to leave. Wait. He moved quickly, blocking the door. Please, I just need 5 minutes. To what end, James? What's left to say? Clearly not well enough. His expression hardened. Don't do this. Don't ruin her day out of spite. I laughed incredulously. Her day, the day she's supposed to marry a man she's been cheating on with my husband. That day. If you cause a scene, you'll only hurt Derek. Is that what you want? An interesting tactic appealing to my concern for Derek when neither James nor Olivia had shown him any. Move, James. I have bridesmaid duties to attend to. He grabbed my arm. I am serious, Emma. Here is more at stake here than you know. Something in his tone sent a chill through me. I pulled my arm free. What's that supposed to mean? Just leave it alone. Let today happen. We can all talk tomorrow and figure out how to move forward without unnecessary pain. The certainty in his voice confirmed what I already suspected. There was a plan in motion and my unpredictability threatened it. Goodbye, James. As I walked back toward the bridal suite, I made my final decision. The question wasn't whether to expose them anymore. It was how and when to detonate the truth for maximum impact. I returned to the bridal suite to find Olivia alone, already in her wedding dress, a flowing off-shoulder gown with delicate lace appliques. She looked beautiful and terrified. Will you zip me? She asked quietly, turning her back to me. I approached slowly, taking the zipper between my fingers. One sharp tug would rip the delicate fabric. One moment of weakness would satisfy the dark impulse lurking beneath my composed exterior. Instead, I zipped it carefully, securing the hidden hooks at the top. Thank you, she whispered, for being here, for not telling Derek. I haven't told him yet. Her shoulders tensed. What does that mean? It means I've spent the last 2 days wondering what kind of person betrays everyone who loves them. I stepped back, creating distance between us. You know what's strange? I kept assuming there must be something I missed. Some explanation that would make sense of all this. Emma, so I did some digging. Checked James's iPad. His email was still logged in. The color drained from her face. What did you find? Confirmation of flights to Bali. Leaving tomorrow morning, both of you. I watched her reaction carefully. Seems like an odd honeymoon choice when Derek's been talking about Italy for months. She sank onto the ottoman, the voluminous dress pooling around her. It's not what you think, no. The transfers from our joint account to one in the Cayman Islands. Is that also not what I think? Her silence was damning. The thing I can't figure out, I continued, is why the elaborate charade? Why go through with a wedding to Derek only to disappear the next day? Why not just leave together like normal cheaters? Olivia stared at her manicured hands. You wouldn't understand? Try me? She looked up, tears threatening to spill. Your family's company, the venture capital deal? The words hit me like a slap. My family's real estate development company had recently secured a $50 million venture capital investment, a deal I'd helped negotiate over the past year. What about it? James has access to the wire transfer information. The initial payment comes through tomorrow. Her voice was barely audible. $20 million, understanding crystallized with sickening clarity. You were going to steal the money. She didn't deny it. James said no one would notice for at least a week. By then, we'd be settled somewhere without extradition. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. This wasn't just an affair. It was a calculated plan to rob my family's company, to destroy everything my parents and I had built. And Derek just collateral damage? We needed the wedding as cover, X men, and focused on me, the celebration. No one watching James. She looked almost regretful. It wasn't personal. I laughed, a sharp, humorless sound. Not personal? You were going to steal from my family and disappear after making me stand beside you in front of everyone we know? What part of that isn't personal? A knock interrupted us. 15 minutes, ladies. The wedding coordinator called through the door. Olivia stood, desperation in her eyes. What are you going to do? For a moment, I considered walking away. Let her marry Derek, then notify the bank before the transfer completed. Let the authorities handle it. But the coldness of their plan, using me, using Derek, using my unsuspecting parents, deserved more than a quiet resolution. I am going to finish my maid of honor duties, I said evenly, starting with helping the bride downstairs. Relief flooded her face, quickly followed by suspicion. That's it. What were you expecting? A catfight? Hair pulling. That's not really my style. Emma, I swear, if you say anything, you'll what? Run away with my husband and millions of dollars. Oh wait, that's already the plan. I opened the door. Your guests are waiting. The ceremony space was beautiful white roses and green ivy cascading over arched trellises, sunlight filtering through ancient oak trees. 200 guests sat in anticipation. Derek stood at the altar, handsome in his tuxedo. Completely unaware his life was about to implode, James sat in the front row beside my parents, who smiled warmly when they saw me. The sight of him next to them, knowing what he planned to do to our family, made me physically ill. The bridal party arranged themselves as rehearsed. The music began. Olivia appeared at the end of the aisle, her father beside her, the perfect bride, ready to commit the perfect crime. As she processed forward, I quietly slipped my phone from my clutch and sent a single text to a number I'd programmed earlier. Now, the first notes of the bridal chorus suddenly cut off, replaced by static. Then James's voice blasted through the speakers. We'll transfer the money as soon as it hits the account tomorrow. No one will notice until we're long gone. Olivia's voice followed. What about Emma and Derek? Collateral damage. They'll be fine eventually. 20 million buys a lot of happiness, Liv. Gasps erupted throughout the audience. Olivia froze mid-aisle. James jumped up, looking wildly for the source of the audio. My father stood slowly, his face a mask of controlled fury as he stared at James. My mother grabbed my hand, squeezing it painfully tight. Derek's expression crumpled from confusion to devastating comprehension as he looked from Olivia to James and finally to me. I stepped forward into the center aisle facing the crowd. I apologized for the disruption, but I thought everyone deserved to know the truth before this wedding proceeded. My husband James and my best friend Olivia had been planning more than just an affair. They intended to steal $20 million from my family's company and disappear after the wedding. Chaos erupted. Olivia's father dropped her arm and stepped back. James tried to approach me, but two of Derek's brothers intercepted him. Through the commotion, I caught Derek's eye. The raw pain there made me look away. I've already notified the bank and the authorities, I continued, my voice somehow steady. Everyone involved will be held held accountable. As security personnel that I'd hired yesterday moved toward James, I walked calmly through the parting crowd, past Olivia, who stood frozen in her perfect white dress, and out of the garden. Behind me, I heard my mother calling my name, but I didn't stop. For the first time in days, I could breathe again. I was halfway to the parking area when I heard footsteps pounding the gravel path behind me. Emma. Emma! I turned to find Derek running toward me, his tie askew, face flushed with emotion. He demanded, stopping just short of me. Before today, did you know what they were planning? About the affair, yes, I found out 3 days ago, I admitted. About the theft, not until this morning. He ran a hand through his carefully styled hair, destroying the gel's hold. Why humiliate me in front of everyone I know? The accusation stung. That wasn't my intention. I needed evidence that would be undeniable. If I'd told you earlier, would you have believed me? His silence was answer enough. I am sorry, Derek, I said softly. You didn't deserve any of this. His anger seemed to deflate, replaced by exhaustion. How did you get that recording? I hired a private investigator the day I found out about the affair. He planted a device in James's car. I've been gathering evidence for days. From the garden came the sounds of continued commotion, Ree's voices, someone crying, authoritative tones that suggested security or police had arrived. You should go back, I said. Your family will be worried. My family thinks I am an idiot who couldn't see what was happening right in front of me. Bitterness edged his voice. They're not wrong, we both missed it. I don't know about you, but I'm getting as far away from here as possible. He nodded, then surprised me by offering his hand. Need a ride? I suddenly find myself with a cancelled honeymoon in a very expensive rental car. The unexpected offer and the absurdity of our situation startled a laugh from me. Aren't you supposed to hate me right now for ruining your wedding? You didn't ruin it, they did. He shrugged. Besides, misery loves company, and we're currently the two most miserable people in Massachusetts. Before I could respond, shouts erupted behind us. James was sprinting down the path, pursued by security and what appeared to be plainclothes police officers. Emma, he yelled. You've ruined everything. Do you have any idea what you've done? Derek stepped protectively in front of me, but I moved around him to face my husband one last time. I know exactly what I've done, I said calmly. I've stopped you from stealing from my family and disappearing with my best friend. What happens to you now is out of my hands. James's face contorted with rage. Your father built that company by stepping on everyone who got in his way. We were just taking what we deserved. Is that how you justified betraying me? Pretending you were some kind of vigilante instead of a common thief? The officers caught up, grabbing James's arms. Mr. Reynolds, you need to come with us. We have some questions about suspicious financial transactions. As they led him away, James called over his shoulder. This isn't over, Emma. You think you know everything, but you don't. I watched them disappear around the corner, an odd sense of emptiness replacing the adrenaline that had carried me through the day. Derek touched my elbow gently. Still want that ride? Before I could answer, my parents appeared, faces drawn with concern and anger. Emma, my father said, his usual commanding presence subdued. Are you all right? I'm fine. I straightened my shoulders. The bank. They've frozen all the accounts James had access to. His jaw tightened. The transfer would have gone through tomorrow morning if you hadn't discovered this. My mother pulled me into a fierce hug. I knew something was wrong when you disappeared for days. But this, how did you even? I extricated myself from her grip. It's a long story, one I'll tell you tomorrow. Right now, I just need some space. Understanding crossed her face. She'd always been better at reading me than Dad, of course. Where will you go? I glanced at Derek, who stood awkwardly to the side and made an impulsive decision. I'm not sure yet, but I'll call you tomorrow. Dad looked like he wanted to argue, but Mom placed a restraining hand on his arm. Go. We'll handle everything here. As they walked away, my father already on his phone, barking instructions to someone about security protocols. Derek raised an eyebrow. So, that ride? He considered for a moment. I have a reservation at the Chatham Bars Inn for what was supposed to be our wedding night. Ocean View Suite, Bernice ashamed to waste it. You are inviting me to your honeymoon suite, just for conversation and probably excessive drinking? He clarified quickly. I think we both earned it. The absurdity of the situation hit me again, standing in my bridesmaid dress beside the man who was supposed to marry my best friend, both of us betrayed by the people we trusted most. You know what, let's go. As we walked toward the parking lot, a strange sense of lightness began to replace the heaviness in my chest. The worst had happened, and somehow I was still standing behind us. Olivia emerged from the garden surrounded by her stunned family, her white dress now a symbol of deception rather than purity. Our eyes met briefly across the distance. For a moment I saw a flash of the girl who had been my friend for 15 years, but that person was gone, leaving only a stranger in a wedding dress. I turned away, following Derek to his car. Fair warning, he said as he opened the passenger door for me. I might need to scream into a pillow at some point today. I'll take that over crying in a bridesmaid dress while eating wedding cake. He actually smiled. A small, fragile thing. Deal. As we drove away from Edgewater at heat, leaving behind the wreckage of what should have been the happiest day of Olivia's life, I realized that endings sometimes arrive disguised as something else entirely. Sometimes they look almost like beginnings. 6 months later, I stood in the newly renovated offices of Reynolds Development Group, watching Boston's first snowfall of the season through floor-to-ceiling windows. The company had weathered the scandal remarkably well, partly due to my father's ironclad reputation in the industry, partly because we'd gone public with the entire story before the press could sensationalize it. James awaited trial on multiple charges: conspiracy to commit grand larceny, wire fraud, and embezzlement from previous company accounts, crimes that investigators discovered went back years. Olivia had turned state's evidence against him in exchange for a lighter sentence, revealing a scheme more extensive than even I had imagined. The fake wedding. It turned 6 months later. I stood in the newly renovated offices of Reynolds Development Group, watching Boston's first snowfall of the season through floor-to-ceiling windows. The company had weathered the scandal remarkably well, partly due to my father's ironclad reputation in the industry, partly because we'd gone public with the entire story before the press could sensationalize it. James awaited trial on multiple charges: conspiracy to commit grand larceny, wire fraud, and embezzlement from previous company accounts, crimes that investigators discovered went back years. Olivia had turned state's evidence against him in exchange for a lighter sentence, revealing a scheme more extensive than even I had imagined. The fake wedding, it turned out, was only the final act in a long con. James had been siphoning smaller amounts from company accounts for over a year, testing the waters before the big score. Olivia had been his willing accomplice, drawn in by promises of wealth,